It's good to be here with friends again on a Friday. It's so nice. Um, Please remind me, we need to talk about a schedule for November and December, what you moms want to do, how you want to approach that. I think in the past we've had a short month for both of those months just to allow lots and lots of time with family. So we can talk about that. We can talk about nature study. We can talk about anything you want. So we've had a lot of great topics over the last few weeks. I was kind of looking over the notes, and there's just so many beautiful things that we have discussed as friends. So anything that's on your heart, you're welcome to share. So if anyone has something to start with, I want to start there. So I'm going to give you a minute or so. It's hard for me to not talk because I have all these things from my notes that I'm looking at. But
something.
Awesome. Hi, Amber.
Hi. So after last week, Jean Stratton Porter came up a couple of times in some of her books, and I thought, okay, I've been meaning to read. I've never read any of her books, and so I pulled down Freckles and read it straight through in a week because it was so good. And so, anyways, I just loved that recommendation, and now I'm going on to her next one. I'm just going to kind of pour through them all because I loved her writing style, and I loved the imagery of nature that she so beautifully portrayed in that book, and as well as all, the character of Freckles. You just love him to death. So anyways, that was my little tidbit to share. That was my heartwarming thing that I did this week that really I just loved.
I know Lindsay's gonna have to say something. I know it.
I love Freckles. I don't have a whole lot more to say about it. You just love him, and then you realize the importance, especially for him, and finding out who he is, and once he realizes that, he knows of his worth, and it's just such a tender book. It's so good.
And it's fun to have a shared thing, to have so many friends have read it, and then now other friends that are here that haven't read it are going to be thinking, okay, all right, I'm going to do it. I'm going to read it. Lindsay Watkins. Oh, okay. And I saw Ida put a big heart up when that came up too. It is a beautiful book. It's a lovely experience. It's interesting too. I don't know what a progression would be, but I'm curious.
I'm good. How are you? Good, thank you. Good. You know what?
I'm curious to know what would be a good progression. Oh, Freckles is the book we're talking about, Melanie. What would be a good progression for somebody who hasn't read a heartwarming book? They're in like current novels, bestseller list. How do you help them move from where they are to these heartwarming books? Because I tried to do that with a friend, and I recommended Anne of Green Gables. And apparently that's not 100% accessible. And so I thought, well, maybe Freckles is. I think it is, but maybe it's not. Is there another path you might recommend for someone going from very much, that they're going to have to kind of make maybe not a 180 turn, but at least a 90-degree turn in their tastes and experiences? Any thoughts on that? Is there a progression, or can it be accessible to them?
Well, maybe I didn't realize I was unmuted. Hopefully no one was saying stuff.
They were.
Maybe recommend a book where they are familiar with it already, like Secret Garden. So they kind of already know the storyline. I've seen the movie 100 times and I love it. But when you actually read the book, so you mentally already know what's going on, but the wording is so much richer than portrayed in the movie. Even though the movie's beautiful, it just has that deeper, vocabulary that just draws you in even further. And then your imagination kind of makes the movie a little bit bigger. Because then you start looking for things. Oh, I wonder if they included that in the movie. So now I'm going to go back and watch it. And that's what I ended up doing. So maybe recommend something that has already been in a movie that they're familiar with.
That's such a good idea. I love that. So I can make a list of those things, movies that they would know. that have books. Ida?
I was thinking too, like, it's easy to read like summaries, not summaries, but like a version that's for younger people or audiences, a shortened story,
Abridged? Uh-huh.
Yeah, which I mean, if you're an adult, that seems silly, but sometimes that's helpful, like, or just reading it to your kids, like, to be like, you should read this to your kids. And then you think, but, I read a lot of books to my boys, and then they were like in bed sleeping, sort of going to bed, and then we would
Mhm.
watch movies, and that really did help them, and it helped them to see the difference and the beauty of the book. And that was like our prize at the end of, I'm busy, so you're gonna have to come back in a little bit, okay? That would help them to see like how good the book was and how cool it was to hear, like, just to recognize the differences. But there was something in the nature study book that I was reading that I was like, oh, this is good. And it was talking about awakening interest. So it was like talking about nature. And then if you go out into nature and you like just start pointing things out to your kids, like you're like, look at the change in the colors of the leaves, or look at these new flowers. And you just start pointing them out, just like in a natural way, right?
Mm-hmm.
Seeing the changes, like it says here, seeing the actual changes awakens interest. And when awakened, it will branch out into other directions. Then your battle is won. A healthy child is an animated interrogation point. When he learns that many of his questions can be answered by keeping his sense alert, he will find his appetite in this direction wonderfully and joyously growing. He will need help and guidance, but the desire and determination to dig a thing out for himself is of inestimable value for increasing his happiness and should never be repressed. And I think that's part of it, like, especially if you're introducing to other people, being able to share things about it, like, oh, I just noticed how much better the book was. And one of the things that I really loved was blah, 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 like maybe partly it's that. Or like for my kids, being able to hear the book and then see the movie and then just pointing out, oh, wow, they didn't put that in the book. Or that's not like the movie, or that's not how I imagined it, or just noting those things. And so they pay attention to that now too. And they're like, huh. So I don't know. That's just my thought. But also just reading the book, just open it up and read it.
I know. I know. And I do think that sharing a little part of it is so helpful. Just sharing a story from it, sharing a paragraph from it, just something to kind of whet the appetite. I think that's a really good idea too. And I love what you said about awakening their interest, like like in nature. And that I can totally remember so many experiences of being outside with my children when they're little and just pointing out a few little things just so that they start looking. I remember being at the beach and we would go in different seasons and there were different things on the sand. And I never knew that until we started going over and having those kinds of experiences. And so sometimes the sand was littered with seaweed. And other times there really was hardly any seaweed at all on the beach, but there would be these jellyfish kind of creatures. I can't remember the name, and they're not jellyfish. They're something, oh, my kids will remember. Maybe Lindsay knows, but they're these blue jellyfish kind of material, and some of them would be clear, but some of them are blue, and those would just be washed up on the beach. And that was kind of cool. There were other times of the year when it was ladybugs. There were ladybird beetles everywhere. They had been caught up in the wind or something, and they were just scattered. Oh, and then other times, just the way that the sand was, the rocks that were exposed or the rocks that were covered. And so then they started noticing those things, and they would run down when we first got there to see which beach they were going to see that time, what it was going to be like. We never got to the point where we remembered which season went with which thing, but it didn't matter. We were still observing and experiencing those things, and I guess awakening or arousing that interest. So that's a really good way to look at it. How do you arouse that interest in those things? So
Yeah.
that's really cool.
that makes me think too, Lori, about we just had a storm and it was a thunderstorm or whatever, and my kids are always excited to go outside right after the storm, and I'm often like, don't go outside, it's all muddy, it's horribly muddy, you're gonna bring in so much. But they're so excited, and you know what, I am too when I think about it. And I usually look out the windows and I'm just kind of checking out, but you want to see what happened in the storm and how it changed things and what, where there's water and all that kind of stuff. And my kids are so excited to go see those kinds of things too. It's interesting to think about like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I love responding to that. When maybe your first instinct is that, like you said, very practical. They're going to get dirty. They're going to bring the stuff in the house. And yet you go to the windows too. You go to see, what does the world look like after that rain or after that storm or after that wind, whatever it is. What does it look like out there? So I think it's awesome to respond to that. Let yourself just, go. I love that. Yes. Oh, salps. That's so weird. Salps. Lindsay Bunting, but I looked it up. I think those jellyfish things are called salps, and they'll just show up on the beach. Yeah, that might be it, Lindsay.
I don't know. I've never looked it up to see what they're called. That's what I found. And
But you've seen them.
I've seen them, and the picture looks right because they have more in common with humans than they do with jellyfish.
Oh,
They're
weird.
not, I know, super weird. So that term salps doesn't sound familiar to me at all because I've never heard it. But
No, but it's just, I don't know. It's just kind of cool to find something. And then I remember there was a dead baby killer whale one time on the beach, just down from the house. And that was super fascinating because how many times are you up close and personal with a baby killer whale? It was dead, but still, that was kind of a cool experience just to see how huge they are. Anyway, just cool experiences just to be open to the world around you. It's been fun. Lindsay and I and Melissa McCann was there with us on Monday, on some of our Mondays, and we send the girls outside. We have the last 2 times just to go see what's out there, see if they can find something interesting. They were finding owl pellets and turkey vulture pellets, and then just exploring. They just started running around and having a really good time. It was fun to watch them just be kids. And somebody remarked, wow, I guess we really pushed them to grow up too fast because they still love this kind of thing. And I was talking about that with Marley Billings, and she was just thrilled when she saw some pictures of them at their tea party and then just playing together, dressing up for their plays, the plays that we've done. And she said, isn't this wonderful? And how many women do you know that would actually, if they didn't feel like they had to be reserved, would love something like this? They would just enjoy it so much. And we think that we grow out of these things, but we don't. And why do we have to? There's no reason why we have to. And so I think that's fun to kind of encourage ourselves to play a little bit more. I saw a video in somewhere on Instagram, I think, and it was a little person in little rain boots standing in the middle of a mud puddle, and she's reaching out to her dad, come on, come here, come in, come here or something. And he was just kind of chuckling, and the mom, I think, was recording the video. He was hesitating, and she was saying, come on, here, take my hand. I'll help you. And so he takes her hand and goes into the mud puddle, and then she shows him, what to do, and starts jumping up and down in the mud puddle. She's got her boots. It's easy, right? He's in his tennis shoes or whatever, but he just goes for it. He starts jumping in the mud with her, it's just the cutest thing. She was so happy that he was in there doing that with her. And I think, we need sometimes to let go, just let go and play. Oh, speaking of, there is a podcast, and I'll let Lindsay correct me if I'm wrong, but it's my friend Laurie Florence, and it's called the Happiness Podcast. Is that right? Yes, the Happiness Podcast.
Happiness Playbook.
Oh, thank you. The Happiness Playbook. And it talks about play theory, which is something that Laurie has been teaching for years and years. She has, she started she's the one I've told you about before. She started a Shakespeare troupe, and they've performed, they've competed, and now they still exist. They're up in Northern California. But she taught play theory to all the kids. She teaches all the kids that come through there. They take this play theory idea, and they've gone to third world countries and taught this to people. And then now she talks about it on this podcast. And so much of it are these ideas like let go and play. Lindsay, you're going to share something? You were. What were you going to share?
I was just going to say, if you go to it and you're going to listen, start at the beginning. I really like the host before. It was a guy, and
Neil.
Yeah, I really liked him. I haven't been listening to it recently, so I feel like I can't like recommend the most recent ones. They could be really, really good, but I haven't been listening since he left.
Yeah, so he started off, but he was one, I think he was one of her students, or at least he was a friend of hers, of Lorie's. But so he had to stop doing it. And so then Lorie took over and went back to hosting. So, and she does a really good job too. I've been listening lately, but I agree. I think it'd be smart to start in the beginning. But if a particular title stands out to you, just go for it. Hop in and listen. There's some really good stuff in there. And if you've ever explored it all, you know, like the fixed mindset versus the growth mindset, this is all growth mindset. It's just really, really good for that. So the happiness playbook, is that what you said? The happiness playbook. Okay. Anyway, just made me think of that when I said, let go and play. Okay. Other thoughts, experiences with nature, or letting go, or slowing down? Thank you. Shannon made a post this morning that kind of referred to slowing down, and I loved it. I thought it was so good. Just getting into the well-educated heart stuff, not being overwhelmed. Marlene's post this morning was really good too. You can't just stand on the side of the river just watching it go by and trying to figure out what you're going to do. You have to actually get in the water. I liked that too.
That reminded me of a quote that I taught during seminary yesterday. It was by Elder Uchtdorf in his October 2012 conference. I don't know why I'm guessing. I have it written down right here. And he says, don't be like the boy who dipped his toe in the water and claimed he went swimming. You know, and that just reminded me of that, just river, just get in. Just do it. It's not going to be hurtful. What's the worst thing that happen? You get wet, you know, if you don't like it, get out. But
Yeah.
just get in. With the nature study, I can't remember if I heard it on a podcast or if I read it in a book. Might have been that Barefoot and Balanced book, where she talked about, like you said, at the beach. She said, yes, it's great to open your kids up to new areas of nature. She said, but there's something so magical about going back to the same place and just seeing how it's changed. And she said it kind of teaches its own lesson of, you can be in the same place, but you don't have to be the same person. And just showing how nature, because nature, again, is the only thing that follows God's plan perfectly. It doesn't get messed up with its own choices. And so you can learn so much from it. And then I've noticed, by just changing my verbiage to, oh, I've noticed, and then you point out whatever it is you're doing. I was driving this morning and my son, he goes, oh, I noticed. And then he pointed out how one song in one game matched the other game. And I was like, I would have never picked up on that. Just like I talked about last week, how they, oh, I remember that song, or I noticed that song is in this show. So just changing your own verbiage changes theirs. And then yesterday I was driving home and I just about hit a deer. The darn thing jumped right out of the trees, right into the road. And I was like, oh, I was telling my kids when I got home, I'm like, yeah, this deer just hopped out in front of me. And it was the one that had antlers, because we have several deer that just come into our yard, but very rarely do we see the one that has the antlers. And they were like, did you notice how many points were on the antlers? I'm like, no, I was 6 feet away from it, but I wasn't trying to observe him. Trying not to
Try to avoid him. Yeah.
Right. But that's what they wanted to know was, well, what did you notice about it? And I was like, well, I was a little busy. So, but just changing your verbiage, you start to notice that it changes theirs.
I like that. I like that you brought up that we don't need to go to all these different places, because it reminded me of just things that we've noticed in our own backyard that come back seasonally. So my husband just pointed out the other day, he's like, that little flycatcher's back in the backyard. It's this little bird, and they're called flycatchers, and they like zip across the yard and they eat the flies. And they're so, it's like a little black bird, and it's like our little bird, and he comes back periodically. And so we just like, we know this little bird because he's here all the time. I don't know, so it's kind of fun. It reminded me of Opal Whiteley, where she wasn't going anywhere, but she had her familiar things, her animals that lived there with her, and her tree. And so it's these things that are right around us that we can just, you know, grow to love because they are always there and they come back, and kind of fun.
We have so many birds that show up in our backyard. And right now my daughter's like, it's crow season. I'm like, is that even a thing? It's because all the crows and the starlings and the blue jays all come back and hide. That's my son. He's like, it's fall. They're all back. And it's just, and then we read that hummingbirds, if you put out a feeder, they remember where it is. So those hummingbirds that you're seeing year after year, it may be that same bird every year, which is so neat to think, oh, he's just back. So we started naming them too.
I love it. That's awesome. And they do come back. The same ones come back, which is amazing to me. That's just so very cool. Yeah, and Melanie, Melanie, do you want to share that, or do you want me to read it?
Can you hear me?
A little bit. Sorry, there we go. Now she gets professional. Now we'll be able to hear her.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I was just thinking this morning about, I guess from Marlene's post, you know, what am I doing and what is blocking me from jumping into different things. And for me, before we moved here, I had this beautiful mountain really close by that I could walk a few miles and see all kinds of wildlife, deer and rabbits and turkeys and stuff. And I walked there every day for a long time and just loved it. And I never got bored of it. But here, since I moved to the valley, it's all flat. And there is a really nice walking path nearby me, like pretty close to my house, but I think it's not that exciting for me to go out to this one walking path day after day. So I did some of that when we moved here, but I've stopped. And I mean, there's multiple reasons. I have chronic pain and stuff too, but it's just not as exciting. But yeah, I was thinking kind of like, I think Lindsay Watkins was saying that instead of finding interest in the variety of places and stuff, that I'd just I need to pay attention to the little changes in the trees and what falls from the trees and stuff. So
Yeah, I loved also what Lindsay said when she said you can be in the same place, but you don't have to be the same person. And I think that's kind of the key. If you decide to be that person who sees more, you know, who opens their heart and their eyes to see and experience more, then you can have a very different experience in the same place.
I think it was from the I can't remember if it was from the Lily and Thistle meeting that they had on My Networks, or if I read this someplace else, but I think it was from Lily and Thistle. She shared this quote: "Don't look for new landscapes, use new eyes to see what is already there." And I thought about that. I was thinking about that, and I was thinking how important that is. Like, that's what we're talking about, like looking at something with a new perspective. And I shared something on Facebook about reading a book that we've read before and going back to it. And it's like, it, in this quote, it's like it preserves part of you, like you remember how you were and how you thought about it as that younger person. And it's kind of like that story preserves a part of you. When you go back and read it, you remember those feelings and thoughts you had about it. And then you also have new eyes to see things a little bit differently. And like the same can happen, you know, just going outside to a place that we've been before, like seeing the seasons and the changes. I walk pretty much the same way on this road by my house every day. And I sometimes don't really pay any attention, but other times I'm like, just, I don't have something in my ears that I'm listening to, and I'm just listening to the sounds that I can hear. And it's interesting what you will see when you just slow down for a minute and start to look around, right? And I think that's part of it. Like, we like to multitask, like we like to listen to something and get our exercise and, you know, be outside and, you know, like you're doing all those things, but you're really, you can't really do all those things. So if you want to be out in nature, you have to be out in nature, and you just, sometimes it takes just sitting and being still and watching, right? For you to be able to notice things and see new things that you haven't seen before. And kids are so good at that, because they'll just go outside and just be like, do, do, do. And then they're like, "Ooh, that's interesting." And then it captures their attention, you know? Anyways, so that's another pro tip. Take your kids with you and just follow their lead and just pay attention. And actually another cool thing, like Lindsay was talking about, Lindsay Watkins, about changing your language too. Like, if I see something, a lot of times I'll be like, "Hey, look at this, guys, this is so cool, come see this." And the other day, my littlest, she was in the bathroom and she's like, "Mom, I see a rainbow in the sink." And I was like, "Okay, cool, cool, cool." I'm doing something in the room. And she's like, "Mom, come on, come look." And I'm like, "I'm busy, Meredy." And she's like, "It's so cool. You have to come see it." I'm like, "All right." So I went to see it, and she was seeing this reflection of her shirt in the metal of the faucet, you know, and it looked like a rainbow. But it was something so cool, but it was so cute when she was like, "It's so cool, Mom, you have to come see it." And like paying attention to that too, because, and responding to it, like Lindsay, you know, like was saying too, like you see that they're modeling you, but then also you need to respond the way that you would want them to respond. So anyways, some thoughts.
No, that's a very important thought.
I don't know if you guys follow Monique Willems on Wonder Creative House or Wonder House Creative. I'll have to check that out. She's part of a nature club, and she said one of the rules of the nature club was if anyone on the hike says, "Oh, I wonder," and they point something out, she says, "It doesn't matter how far we're supposed to go." She goes, we're required to stop, and we all have to go and look. Because she said that's how you rabbit trail learn. Because if you don't follow those, and what's the verbiage she used? If you don't attend to their wonder at the time, then they'll stop wondering, because they'll be like, "Well, Mom's not going to look at it anyway," so they'll just stop saying it. So their requirement is, yeah, if someone says "I wonder," then the whole group has to go. So I thought that was really neat, because I'm very guilty about not jumping down the rabbit hole sometimes, because it's like, I just want to get this done. I don't want to keep going off on your tangents and not coming around to the important things. But the important part is the tangent, because that's what they are wondering about now. And if you follow those, then that's what's really going to stick with them.
So I love that. I love it. I love this idea, this thought you just shared. If we don't attend to their wonder, they'll stop wondering, which is true in lots of different areas. Like when they're tiny and they want to help you do every job in your house, and it's messy and it takes longer. If you don't take advantage of that excitement and that desire to help Mom, they lose it. So there's so many things that you want to attend to while they're young. Okay, and okay, Erin, yes, your name is showing up right this time. So that's awesome. Welcome. We're so happy that you're here. I love it. Erin, Erin has a nursing baby, so we're not on camera, but she's agreed to introduce herself just a little bit.
Sorry, he
No.
is he's nursing and teething and everything. So I'm so sorry. I won't flash everybody.
Yeah, you're fine.
Thanks. So my name is Erin. I have 4 little ones. I'm homeschooling, and the 2 who are in school right now are Charlotte. She's in 2nd grade, and Brian is in kindergarten. And I'm just so much enjoying being part of this group. I've been catching up and following along on the recorded. And then I've set a reminder for myself to join. And I finally was able to catch everything today. So I'm so happy to be here and participate when I can and listen into all of this. I love the well-educated heart. Lindsay introduced me to that about a year ago, and it's just really, it's changed my view of homeschooling and connecting with my children. So I'm really happy to be here and to be connecting with you ladies.
Oh, Erin, thank you so much for taking a minute to come on and share. I'm so happy that you're back. I'm glad it worked out for you today to join the whole thing. And I look forward to meeting you because you're not very far away from me. You're just across town. So that'll be fun sometime.
Me too. Thank you.
And we know about nursing babies. So it's funny. You hear the sounds I was hearing. It's like, oh yeah, that's nursing teething baby. I know what that's like. Oh, okay. Yeah. I have way too many things going on right now in my head. So I'm flipping it back to you guys. This is a lovely discussion, by the way. Yeah, Lindsay.
Erin, I'm so glad you said something. I didn't even notice that was you over there. So I'm so glad you're on here. That's so exciting. Erin lives next door to my sister-in-law. And so my daughter and her daughter are friends when we go over there. And, they're just the cutest little family. So I'm so glad you're on here.
Thank you. We look forward to every time your kids are here. They love it.
It's so fun. And the sister-in-law that Erin lives next door to was a babysitter for us when my kids were little. So, so crazy. So crazy. There's a family my mom knows. They just moved up to Idaho. They have twins, young kids, and they moved to Idaho to get away from the heat here, to go be somewhere where it was more conservative, just, lots of things. And the family either that bought their house or the family that left the house that they bought and went to in Idaho are moving to leave Idaho because it's just way too cold. They have twins, young kids, and they just weren't able to get outside and play. So they wanted to come somewhere where it was warmer. So they moved to Bakersfield. Like, they just, 2 families with twins, young kids, and they just swap places because they weren't happy where they were. Anyway, just think it's funny. I would love to have a documentary following the 2 families and see, are they happy in their new surroundings, or do they find that it's more about their attitude than about their surroundings? I don't know. Anyway, I get way too involved in my stories about people's lives. Yeah, just wait. I've got stories about each one of you. I'm just kidding. I know you all too well to need to have to make up stories. Yes, Amber, the grass is always greener on the other side. Absolutely. Do you find that you do that? I do that. I did it for years, and I finally, most of the time, can remind myself, okay, just stop. It has so much to do with your attitude, right? The way you look at things, the way you choose to look at things. Okay, more? Do we have more? Oh, I was going to say about, finding things in your own backyard. I love that thing well, it's not a thing, but I love what I learned, I think from Marlene, about Louis Agassiz, that he had friends that tried to give him tickets to go to Europe so that he could explore things in Europe. He was a naturalist, or he's a scientist, but he studied, did he study, what did he study? I know he studied rocks and geology. Is that what it is? Geology? Anyway, I know that's the study of rocks. I just don't remember what he did. Anyway, but he said, no, I can't. There's far too much to see here in my own backyard. And he spent the next 9 months just learning more about the things around him. Now, I'm curious, for one, did he mean literally in his own backyard, or did he mean the way we say in my own backyard, in my own, surroundings, right? If anybody knows, I actually am seriously interested in the answer to that question. Not that it matters, but yeah, maybe both, But I love that thought. I love that idea. One of the girls I mentor, she has a project currently of going out in my yard when she's here on a regular basis and taking a picture in the same spot, so that over time she can see how that one little spot just in a backyard can change over time, the differences that will be there. So I'm curious to see what she gets from that. There's no assignment or anything. It's just other than go out there, take a picture, and then observe. I just love the idea of learning from observing, and I don't do that enough. And as I'm beginning to do that now in my life, I am finding so much enjoyment from it.
I think just like what we talked about earlier, just this sense of like learning from a sense of wonder, because that's when it really sticks. So we had to have we are part of a charter. And so then I have to meet over Zoom with our homeschool teacher once a learning period. So we met with her yesterday, and she was like, because she knows how I do school, and she knows we don't do any formal math or anything. And she's always like really nervous for me. Like, are you sure your kids are learning? Like, but I trust you. And she's like, I'm always so shocked because they have to take this like STAR test the beginning and end of every year. And she's like, they always do so well in the math portion. And I'm like, I'm telling you, it's because when they have a question about math, we talk about it, they figure it out, and then they remember it. So it's just this idea of like teaching it when they need it or when they want to learn about it. It makes the whole difference. If you're trying to teach your kids things they don't even have a question about, then I just thought the same thing for me. And I used the example with her. I'm like, it's as if I started telling you all about how to make cabinets and how to like cut them and stain them and put them up. You didn't even have the question. Like, why would you even remember anything I'm going to tell you about this topic? Because you don't care. So I think that's just been something I've been thinking a lot about, just teaching from a point of wonder.
Yeah. I love that. And it is so true. Those are the things you hang on to, are the things that you wonder about. And so often those are the things that a child doesn't get answered. Those questions, those things that they wonder about. Even if you don't know the answer, or if you don't have time to find out, at least honor their question and suggest that you can get back to it, that they remember it and we talk about it again another time. But don't dismiss it. I think those are so important. What do you love to learn about? What things are you interested in? I love this whole idea of this nature study for the Mothers University is for the mothers. It's for the mothers. And that keeps being emphasized. Like I said, I'm on this little team, Lindsay and I, of helping with adding more things to the Mothers University, helping make it more clear that Mothers University is what comes after Catch the Vision, that's the next thing to get, to dive into. But it's for you, it's for the mother. And I was thinking about that, and I was thinking, okay, so how does that work for you? Mothers of all ages, how does that work for you to dive into the Mothers University? What is it you're going to get out of that? Because a lot of it is philosophy. It kind of gets deep into philosophy, but those are the things that Marlene learned when she was, she was reading and studying and trying to find out why these things, why these topics. And she learned the whys from this philosophy. And we talk about that, how it's so important to learn the why of a thing. That helps us then to know that it's important, to know why it's important, and then to move forward with it. And then to take advantage of the resources that are there at Mothers University in the months take advantage of the movies and the books and the little articles or the little audios that you can listen to. Just, you don't have to do any of them all, all the way. Just kind of take a little bite here and a little bite there. And even that I was thinking, okay, so how does that benefit us? And I was just thinking about the other day, Lindsay's kids were over, and yeah, and they're just funny. They're swinging on the swing outside, and Ruby was she was asking me some questions. I can't remember. I think then I mentioned to you, Ruby, that we had owl pellets and turkey vulture pellets. And she, really, where are they? And she started looking for them in the grass. I'm trying to make a long story short. And I said, Ruby, where would the owls be? Where would the owls sit? And they would sit in the trees. Okay, so then where would the pellets be? Oh, under the trees. So we went under the trees and we were looking, and we found maybe one, but we weren't sure. I had already picked up a ton of them from under the trees. So I said, Ruby, there's a bunch of them that are down underneath a rope ladder in the back. And she knows where that is. And so she took her brother Max and they went down there, and they each came back with a really good owl pellet. I mean, they were awesome. And Ruby, can you tell what you found in your owl pellet?
Uh-huh.
What'd you
There's
find?
a bunch of bones.
A bunch of bones?
Uh-huh.
Why do you think there were a bunch of bones?
Because they spit out the fur and bones.
Yeah. And were they big bones?
Some of them were, and some of them were tiny, and some of them were more big.
Yeah, there were different sizes, huh? And what did we think that the owl had probably eaten by exploring the bones?
Mice.
Yeah.
And tiny, tiny birds.
Yeah, right. And was that kind of interesting to find that and then be able to open it up and see?
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was cool. And we had fun doing that. And it was super fun for me to have a child be around that I could say, hey, would you like to, look at this? And then have them go and have that experience. Well, these tiny little things that you can learn a little bit about, you can interact with children around you. We have lots and lots of opportunities to interact with children. And I think it's such a blessing for them to be able to have adults in their lives who want to talk to them, who will interact with them and help them to be interested in the world around them. I don't know. Anyway, I just love that just us knowing little things can help us interact with the people around us. I think that's a beautiful thing, actually. That's so fun. So fun to be on camera so you can see your friends. Okay, and Linnell, I'm curious, I don't know if you're able to talk, but you've been in multiple states and lots of different areas and lots of different places in nature. And I'm curious to see, have your children been curious and found cool things that they got excited about? Did you find really interesting things that you got excited about that you maybe wouldn't have before? I know you and I have talked about your journey into nature and into outside, which kind of started with that conversation with Ginny of 1,000 Hours Outside, her inviting moms to try it, to get outside. And I just love that you were brave enough to say, okay, I'm just going to try it. Linnell lives in Minnesota and just had decided, no, it's cold here in the winter. People shouldn't be outside when it's cold outside, which has always been my philosophy. But she did it. She made a determination to try it. And I think your original goal was to get outside. I can't remember, was it just to get outside every day, or maybe to get outside for 20 minutes a day? Something like that was one of your original goals. And she did it. And she did it with her children. And it kind of changed some things in her life and changed the way that they experience life now, which I think is really exciting. And I know she's traveling, so she may not be able to talk. So we understand that. Anybody else have opportunities to things where they have gotten outside in nature and had these kinds of maybe a change of heart or just a warm experience that you've had for yourself or with your children? I know Melanie's trying to be brave to get out there, even though she has flatlands around her instead of beautiful mountains. So maybe this will inspire you a little bit. You can talk to Lindsay Bunting, who goes out in our foothills, which are going to probably be similar to what you're looking at, Melanie.
I debated sharing the reality of what our nature trails actually are.
Yeah.
I started typing it, and then I was like, no, that's negative. I'm not going to share. But there's honestly more homeless people than nature along the trail. So you're like, okay, guys, like, this is why we make good choices. And then look, there's a squirrel in the trash can. So you definitely have to look hard for, like, you have to be in the right place, and you definitely have to be a different person to appreciate the beauty in places around here sometimes. Lori's lucky because she just looks out her back window and it's just beautiful. But yeah, the trails around here like that, just the parks and things like that, it's hard. There's not a whole lot of things kept up. Even our river that I like to go to, and it's so pretty down there, you'll just go down and find homeless camps and trash and all sorts of yucky stuff.
We want to clean it up.
Yeah, we try to clean it up, but then you go back and it's dirty again, and it just gets frustrating.
Yeah, did you see Lindsay Watkins' comment for you, Lindsay? Said you could ask your children what the homeless can use as resources that are in nature.
So good.
But it's true.
I know. Or ask them if they know of like a nice place in town that's not covered in homeless camps.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard. We have this lovely place that's called Wind Wolves Preserve, but it's like 40 minutes away. We just don't have anything that's close that's kept up, or we just don't really. So yeah, we just go out in my backyard. Lindsay's in my backyard on Mondays and Tuesdays, so just hang out in nature anywhere you can find it, even if it's your back porch. You know, my sister's moving, one of my sisters, and she's going to be in a condo for a while, and she's a gardener. She has a beautiful green thumb, and it's going to be very hard for her, but she's already planning. You know, her little balcony is just going to be her oasis, her place to be able to grow things and still have that, you know, little gift of nature around her.
I was gonna say that too, Lori. Like, even if it's just a little space, like putting out a bird feeder or putting out planting flowers, things that encourage the butterflies and the birds or whatever to come. Like, there's so much beauty in just that. Like, we put a bird feeder outside of our kitchen window last spring, and it was just so fun to sit there because we would sit at the breakfast or whatever, and we'd always see birds. And so then we would be like, oh, look, there's that bird. And we'd learn about a little bit about the birds. And that was just such a simple thing, but like such a easy way to invite nature into your life experience with your children.
Yeah, and even putting pictures on the screen on your television, you know, have it just rotate through nature pictures so that that's something that they're familiar with and they see. We had friends who had one of those bird feeders, which I still want. It's still on my wish list. But the one that sucks onto your window, I don't know how you attach it, and it's clear. And so you watch as the birds come up, the post is kind of, you know, sits on the outside, and they come up and sit on the post and then are feeding, and you're watching from the inside. I don't know what this was. This was telling you something really important about how that feeder is. But I just thought that was so cool because I sat in their living room, and here you are just watching the birds sitting there on its little perch and eating. So I loved that. But any little thing just to bring in some nature. Okay, yeah. Lindsay. Okay, Lindsay Bunting said, I feel like the sky is one place too that is always available to us. The clouds, sunsets, sunrises, moon, etc. I love that. What a lovely way to think about that. You can just go outside and look up. And then Lindsay Watkins mentioned that watching the clouds. Floating clouds gives her motion sickness.
It's terrible. My husband's like, can you hold this ladder? And so I'm holding him and I'm looking up at him and the clouds are floating past him. I'm like, nope, I can't hold your ladder. I'll
Look at the ground.
bottom. So if you're falling, yell first because it just makes me so sick. I can't watch water. I have to look at the horizon because if I'm looking at the water just coming in, I'm just like, oh, it's not good.
Wow. Yeah, that's serious motion sickness.
Yeah. So you're laughing, Lindsay. I see you, but it's serious.
You guys are so funny. Oh, okay. Well, we have 4 minutes. Does anybody have something that they want to share in these last 4 minutes? Or I don't know, Linnell, if you're available yet. And I'm so sorry. I feel bad when I call on somebody and some of you you're here, but you can't be on camera or on, the audio, and that's fine. Oh, hey.
I'll share. My thoughts are all over the place, so I'm just going to share random thoughts.
We love
For the
any of
thoughts
your
I
thoughts,
had.
my friend.
Thanks. I've had lots of opportunities to meet well-educated heart friends while being in Utah, and it's been amazing. In Minnesota, I don't have any well-educated heart friends, and so the only connections I had to others was from the Zooms or from Rachel's We Heart Shares. And so I feel like those of you who have people nearby, you're so lucky because it's completely different to be with other well-educated heart moms in person. So I got to visit Melissa McCarty and Vernal, and I visited another family in Tooele, and I went to the aviary with Rachel von Niederhausen. And so that's just been really neat. And for nature thoughts, I took my kids to the aviary and we got to see so many different birds, and they were really excited and they couldn't wait to see all of the birds. And I asked my sister if she's been able to go, and she's like, yeah, but I wasn't really interested in it. And it just shows the difference in perspective and how people treat nature or anticipate nature or enjoy nature. And so I've seen that a lot as well, that as I've immersed myself in well-educated heart, my perspective about nature has changed, where I seek out opportunities to be in nature and to learn from nature. And not everybody does. It's just not a priority to other people. And one of my nephews, we went to a park and he brought some Play-Doh, and I tried to get him to play with us, to look at the ducks or to play on the playground or to be in nature. And he's like, well, I just want to play with my Play-Doh. And so it takes some practice and some learning. There's kind of a learning curve, I feel like. And I definitely had that learning curve. I remember last winter, before Well-Educated Heart, I used to think that I had to entertain my children with toys, and I had to buy them things in order to help them learn or to play. And then one day I was out in the snow and my kids were happy for 3 hours. And I realized snow is it doesn't cost anything. Snow is free. And it's a gift from nature that can entertain my children for hours and hours on end. And they just love it and they don't get bored of it. And they come up with all sorts of things. And so when I realized how much nature has to offer that's completely free, it made me prioritize nature even more. I don't need to buy a toy for my children. I can just take them outside. And so prioritizing these experiences over material things has also helped just with my home and the clutter and all of that. I recently took my children to hike the Y here in Utah, and it's a pretty steep hike. And my youngest is 3 and she struggled with it. It was difficult for her. And there are, I think, 10 switchbacks. And so you'll go one up a little bit, and there's posts that label it. So you get to 1 and then you go back, and 2 and 3, and you zigzag all the way up to get to the Y on the mountain. And she was struggling halfway up the first switchback. And so she's 3 years old. And so it was interesting to see how I, as a mother, could motivate her and encourage her and help her keep her sights to the next one, and just one more step, and let's just get to 1. And we got to 1, we celebrate. Okay, let's just get to 2. And I've pondered that a lot, and how that has helped me in my own journey, and how sometimes I'm feeling discouraged about whatever aspect of life I'm at or struggling with. And I just need to make it to the next marker. And I had to redirect her attention. She kept focusing on how sore her legs were, or how much she didn't want to be there, or how cold it was, and she wanted to go back to the car. And sometimes I do that too with my journey, that I just don't want to keep moving forward. And having other people encourage me and help me focus on just, let's get to this next one, makes such a difference. And so I think that's what my Well-Educated Heart community does for me, is I have these other mothers and other examples of people who are helping me along. Let's just get to the next switchback, and you can do it. And why don't we, one thing that we did was we had her turn around, and so she was walking backwards up and helped rest her legs a little bit. So just giving different strategies. And so I was with a friend this past week, and she asked, so what is Mothers of Influence? And I had a difficult time explaining to her exactly what it is. She said, is this like a homeschooling group? No, not really. And so I think what I've come to figure out or realize is that my Mothers of Influence community is a group of mothers who encourage and support because of a similar mindset and perspective. And so as we all catch the vision together, we can support each other in our own journeys and encourage each other along the path and help us to reach our goals because we have that similar vision. And so I liked that a lot better than just a homeschooling group. And it's a group of women who are all trying their best to learn things and to encourage each other and support each other. And so that's been really helpful for me.
Thank you for sharing. I'm so glad you were able to do that. I appreciate your words, and I love that analogy of hiking with your daughter, and that reminder. I will probably use that as the title of this video. Let's just get to the next switchback. Sometimes that's all we can do, and that's okay. But boy, do we feel it when we're, halfway there and we feel like we just can't do it. We just can't move on. And yeah, I loved that too. Lindsay Watkins said, sometimes you do have to walk backwards just to see how far you've come. And I love that. Thank you for sharing that, Lindsay. But it's true. And it's so good to have each other. Don't you feel that now when you're struggling? Do you know that you have these women that are on the screen right here? These are women that you can reach out to and just say, hey, this is really hard right now. Or you don't even have to say that it's so hard if that's not where you are, but you just reach out to them and just get a little bit of feedback so that you feel that support and that encouragement, so that you remember, I'm not alone here. I'm not alone. I think that's why I get so much out of that visual that I have of those outposts out there, I can look out my window and I can see a light shining in each one of your homes. The lights may be dimmer or brighter, there's a change that'll happen in that. It just kind of goes back and forth as we're all doing our best to do what we can, but there's a light burning, and it gives me comfort and hope and encouragement to see that and remember that I am not alone. Yeah, okay, Erin shared something. I want to read this. I've been thinking a lot about journeys and perceived waiting rooms and taking the opportunity to find joy and education in those times. We had an opportunity to go with my mom to a doctor's appointment in LA, and she was so fun to be with. She pointed out so much to see on the drive down. When we got there, she said she was sorry the appointment might be long. We took the opportunity to visit the UCLA Botanical Garden, and that has become such a joyful memory to look back on for myself and for my kids. Yeah, we have choices. We can choose how we handle the things that are coming our direction, how we handle the trials, the difficult times, the people in our lives who don't understand. We can choose. Yeah, the waiting rooms are just part of the journey. Yeah, it's hard sometimes. Yeah, Lindsay Watkins said, I love the thought that sometimes you just need to sit in the waiting room. There are times where we're just having to be patient and wait upon the Lord, and those times are hard. All of it, there are hard times. I never mean to suggest that there aren't. I just know from a number of years of going through this and being where you are, that there's a way through it. There always is a way through it, and there is a way to receive strength while you're in it. And we just need to reach out so that we can access that. Yeah, Lindsay.
I was just listening to a Read Aloud Revival podcast yesterday, and she's taught this a lot on there, but just that that God gives us the amount of time we need to accomplish the things that he's asked us to do. So like a lot of times we think we don't have time to do all of these things that we want to do. Well, maybe some of those things he hasn't asked us to do, or maybe like the time will be there at another time. Yeah, Lindsay just listened to it. I loved that though. That's what I really pulled out of that podcast was he gives us the amount of time we need to accomplish the things he's asked us to do.
And another good, thank you for sharing that, because another good part about that is he also gives the people we live our lives with the amount of time they need to. And sometimes our waiting time is waiting for others around us. And that's hard because we may be there, we may be able to see, but they haven't quite caught it yet. And sometimes we're just waiting for them and allowing that long allowing that Melissa taught us about. Long suffering is long allowing those others in our lives to take advantage of opportunities for their own growth. And that's hard. Just being patient and loving and allowing. Yeah. Well, I hope you remember that you're not alone, that we're all here, and that that can provide some comfort and strength. And obviously you all know, and hopefully we all remember the greatest source of comfort and peace, and that we access that on a regular basis too. That is the best way to receive that kind of strength that we need to move through the things. But I do believe that nature is a gift from our Heavenly Father so that we can have a place where we can go to feel him more. And I feel that. I hope you feel that. I hope you get out there and look and just whatever tiny bit of nature you can get out and see, look and try to feel his love for you in that gift, because it's there. And it's for you as a mother to access these things. It will trickle down to your family, but it's really a gift for you. So thanks for being here today. Thanks for sharing. Thanks for the thoughts and the connections. It's always so good